Hi guys, it's Moxie again. I'm here to do part 2 of my paranormal experiences. In my first video, I explained a gift that my grandmother was said to have had. I talked about some experiences that my parents and my older siblings had at other houses before they moved into the main house where we had most of our paranormal activity. And I explained a couple of situations that we had when we first moved into the house. So, I'm here to continue that. And I can't really say that all these are going to be in order of how they happened or anything like that, but it's pretty much just to list off some of the activity that we had when we were at when I lived at my parents' house. So, just a reminder that this is the house that my parents still live in to this day, and I moved in that house when I was 7 years old, and I'm 22 now. So for 15 years we've been experiencing all this paranormal activity in this house. The first two experiences I had already mentioned in the earlier video, where my mom had seen like this kind of rainbowy apparition of something that looked like it had rolled out the door, and I also mentioned a vortex that not only had my parents seen, I had seen, and my older brother had seen, but it was a vortex that my brother was often, as he explained it, they tried to suck him up into it or something. So from there, I kind of want to start off with the lesser things. Of course, when you experience paranormal activity in a house that's really, really haunted, most of the time you see stuff that's moved on its own, thrown on its own, or, you know, it just disappears and you don't know where it went, and it doesn't show up until months or weeks later. And it's also common for some people to see shadow apparitions, which is pretty much a silhouette of a person, and we saw these a lot at my parents' house. One of my earliest experiences in that house, I had a bedroom that was at the end of a hall, and it was the smallest bedroom in the house, so, you know, I wasn't sharing a bedroom with any of my siblings, so I got the smallest room. Almost every single night, the ceiling fan would start spinning on its own, and it wouldn't spin very quickly, but it would just kind of, you know, slowly teeter around. So often I would call to my mom and tell her it's doing it again, you know, the ceiling fan is spinning, it's moving on its own, what do I do? I'm freaking out. Because of course when you get an experience like that, sometimes you gotta get that shiver down your spine where it feels like you're being watched or you're not alone. So my mom would always come in, she would, you know, put her hand up, she'd stop the fan because we had really low ceilings, and she'd say, okay, well hopefully that does it. One night she decided to stay in there after she had stopped it to see if it did it again, and sure as hell it did it again. She actually ended up calling an electrician to have come, you know, to make sure that there wasn't any short or anything like that that was causing it to spin like this, and they found absolutely nothing. The thing that frightened me the most about that was every single time the ceiling fan would begin to spin, there was always an apparition that would stand at the foot of my bed, which was also in front of the closet door. Now, this apparition is a little hard to explain. From what I remember, it had no feet, and it looked like somebody who was wearing a cloak with the hood up. So all you really saw was like this hooded apparition. So I didn't really know what it was, and, you know, I always tried to play it off as my eyes were playing tricks on me, but that never seemed to be the case because I was not the only one who saw it. Pretty much all it would do is whenever the ceiling fan would start, it would always just kind of appear at the foot of the bed in front of the closet door, and it would just sway back and forth. Sometimes it'd be closer to the bed, sometimes it'd be closer to the closet door, but there was only a space that was like 3 feet from the closet door to the foot of my bed, so there wasn't really much room, but you can tell if it was closer or farther away. Related to that, when I was in this room, my two little brothers shared a room that was just down the hall a slight ways and on the opposite side. So, you know, they shared a bedroom. They were, you know, around the same age. They're both boys, so they shared a bedroom. There was one night in particular that I remember that this apparition didn't show up in front of my closet door, and what had happened that night was, you know, I was really surprised it didn't show up. The ceiling fan wasn't spinning anything. Okay, great, you know, maybe I'll actually sleep really well tonight because I didn't really sleep very well. And the next thing I know is I hear my youngest brother, who was maybe 4 at this time, he started just yelling and screaming, "Mom, Dad, there's something in my room, come help me please, I don't know," and they were just, of course, parents, and you have so many kids that are constantly, "Mom, Dad, come here, something's wrong, come here, something's wrong." Usually it was me, sometimes it was them, but more often than not it was me. So they're just like, "Quiet down, it can't hurt you, just go to sleep, ignore it, it'll go away." Well, at this point my parents didn't realize that it could hurt us, but I was always really paranoid. I've always been very protective of my two little brothers, especially after living in this house, of course. So they wouldn't, and then before I know it, my baby brother is screaming just bloody murder. So the first thing I do is I I jump up out of my bed and I run to their room and I flip on the light as soon as I can, and he's sitting there just bawling his eyes out. And I asked him what the hell just happened. He said that there was a very, very tall, skinny man, but he couldn't see his face, he was a shadow on the wall, and he was trying to grab his feet. And I was like, okay, so shadow person, that's pretty typical to see here. So why did it freak you out so bad this time? My little brother said that this man had to at least have been 7 or 8 feet tall. And that's just to cast a shadow that was as big as it was. And he said that another thing that really scared him about it was that this man had extremely long fingers, like unhuman-like long fingers. So, I decided to look at his foot, whatever, calm him down, tell him that the light's on, it's okay, it went away as soon as the lights went on, it's fine. And then I asked my other little brother, who was in the room too, "Did you see it too?" "Yeah, I did," and he started freaking out too. So I told him, pulled him to the side. I was like, "Well, what did you see?" "Well, it kept playing with my feet, so I kept just kicking my feet, and I tried to roll over and ignore it, like Mom and Dad always told us to do." And I was like, "Okay, well, of course." "Okay, so why is our youngest brother so freaked out?" "Well, it actually grabbed his foot." "A shadow grabbed his foot." "Yes, a shadow grabbed his foot. It actually grabbed it. I saw it. It wasn't just a shadow on the wall. The shadow came off of the wall and grabbed his foot." So I'm like, that's pretty creepy. So, being a big, older, protective sister, I went over to our youngest brother and I checked his foot where the blanket had been pulled away, which I thought, maybe he just kicked his foot out from under the blanket or something. But he said that no, this shadow man had pulled back the blanket and grabbed his foot, and his hand came off the wall. It wasn't a shadow, it was just a mass. It was a black silhouette of a hand that grabbed his foot, and I looked at his foot and his foot was red, almost as if somebody had grabbed it violently and just squeezed his foot. So of course it's no wonder that he was screaming. His foot was also very cold where it was red, and I just couldn't explain it. And this was not the first time that it happened either. Well, this had not been the only time that it happened. As far as shadow people, I'm going to just try to stay on like little categories here, so hopefully I can remember more. More shadow people. My mom had told me about something very, very strange and quite humorous that had happened. She'd gotten up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and when we first moved into the house, the doors that were on the shower were actual doors, like sliding doors, and one of them had a mirror on it that faced out and actually reflected into the mirror above the sink, which is never a good thing as far as I've been told. So they replaced it. They replaced the whole shower actually, and now they just have a curtain. But they still had the doors at this time. They had just flipped it so the mirror was in, facing in the shower instead of facing out towards the other mirror, because I told them what I had read about that, and they decided to change it, hoping that it would stop the activity. So my mom woke up in the middle of the night. She had to use the restroom. So she got up, she went to the bathroom, and she was doing her business on the toilet, and next thing she knows, she hears a little pitter-patter. So she thought maybe the bathtub was dripping or something, and she said that the next thing she knows, she sees a tiny person crawling out of the bathtub. Seriously. She said that it had to at least been a foot tall, maybe, if even, but it was just a perfect silhouette of a little human. And she said that when it literally, like, it had to climb out over the edge of the tub, but when it landed on the ground, it actually, like, went down. It braced itself, and she saw its knees bend down and everything, like it was a solid being. She said that she was completely shocked, and she just looked at it. She had no idea what to do. I mean, if you're sitting on the toilet peeing and you see something like that, what do? Do you pull up your pants instantly, or you just stand there going, what? Well, she didn't know what to do, so she just kind of stood there for a few seconds going, what is that? This thing turns around, sees her, jumps as if it's scared, and runs through the door. The door wasn't open, it just ran through, like, as if the door wasn't even there. So, when my mom told me this story, I of course had to laugh, but I was like, you scared the poor thing. She's like, I know, but I didn't mean to. Of course, that was definitely one of the more humorous stories and not so much scary, but, you know, it's still one of my favorite stories that my mom told me about that house, just because I could just imagine it. It must have been so tiny and so absolutely adorable. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was an apparition that really kind of creeped me out, even though it shouldn't have, but it was a cat. And it wasn't just a regular cat, it was a black cat, and it had these glowing green eyes. Well, I didn't really see it as a threat because I had a room down in my bedroom for a little while was down in the basement, where we had 2 bedrooms and our laundry room as well as a family room. So often at night I wouldn't see it at first. At first I only heard it purring, and it would lay under my bed while I was trying to sleep, and it would just purr and purr and purr, and I thought, you know, this is kind of relaxing. Well, my parents did have a black cat, and they also had an orange cat. We had different cats growing up, so of course, you know, cats. But this cat was definitely different, and after my worst experience with it, I realized it is definitely different, and it is definitely evil. What happened was, it would always be under my bed when I would go to bed, I had this bedroom in the basement, and it would just purr and, you know, just kind of make little meowing, meow, meow, and purr, and I always thought it was so relaxing, and I would almost, as soon as the purring started, I'd listen to it for only a couple seconds, and I'd be out. I'd be completely dead asleep. So I always saw it as a good thing. Maybe it's kind of like, you know, it's letting me know it's there, it's going to protect me, it's not a bad thing, it's going to protect me from these bad things that are happening. This event corresponded with the second or the third time that my younger brother was attacked. And I'm going to get to that in a minute after I explain what happened this time. So it was a regular night. I went to bed kind of late. I usually did. Usually about 11 o'clock, midnight, I'd go to sleep. And that night was different from the rest because the cat was purring, but it wasn't under the bed. And I wanted to look so bad. Like, I wanted to look and see it, but I knew that I did not want to. There was something telling me you do not want to see it. And I kept getting this urge, I want to look at it. I want to look at it. And something kept telling me, keep your head on the pillow. Do not look. Whatever you do not look at the thing. So, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about this experience, but there was something telling me to look at it, I dare you, look at it, and another thing saying, do not look, you will regret it for the rest of your life. So I kept my head on the pillow, laying on my back, and I was like, okay, well, this is different, you know, it's not under the bed. Okay, well, I'm really curious what it looks like. I wonder what it looks like. At this point, we hadn't seen it. Well, I hadn't seen it. My father had seen it, and he explained to me that it was quite a bit larger than a regular cat, but it was black and it had glowing green eyes, like they literally glowed, illuminated. So, all the while, I'm sitting here having a little panic in my head saying, why do I not want to look at it? I mean, it's just a cat, right? It wants to protect me, doesn't it? And next thing I know, I had a nightstand that was right next to my bed, right next to the side of my head, and next thing I know, I hear the whole thing shake. Not too bad, but it did shake to the point where it did sound like a cat had jumped on it, and several things fell off of it. Like, I had water bottles, my alarm clock, and whatnot on it. But I did hear things falling off of it, and I heard it shake, and it was right next to my head. Now, this is the point where I can hear this thing breathing, and it is the most unnerving thing I've ever experienced. I was so horrified. I didn't know what to do. I was panicking, and all I could do was close my eyes. That was the point that I realized this thing was trying to force me to look at it, and I realized which one of those things in my head was saying look, and which ones were saying don't. All I was doing up until this point was staring at the ceiling and keeping my eyes directly fixed on the light fixture in the middle of the room. When I heard it breathing, I just pretended that I was sleeping, and I took the blanket and I covered my head. What happened next really made me want to avoid this thing as much as possible from that point on, and unfortunately it wasn't the last time that I was going to run into it. What happened after I had covered my head was I heard the beginning of a meow, and I thought, okay, well it's going to start meowing. Okay, well that's not too bad, right? Except it wasn't a meow. It started out as a meow and turned into a blood-curdling scream. And it sounded almost demonic. It started off like meow, and then turned into a ferocious like growling, like grrr, and it turned into, all I can explain as is demonic. It just screamed. Now, when it started meowing, it didn't just do it once. It did it 6 times. From beginning of the meow, to the growl, to the screaming, and then it would stop, and it would meow again, growl, and scream again. It did this 6 times. At least that was all that I counted, because by the time I counted 6 meows, or blood-curdling growls, whatever you want to call it, by the time I counted the 6th one, I had passed out. And I woke up the next morning with my mom coming in my room, asking if anything strange happened the night before. Now, that happened to be what she always asked when something bad had happened the night prior to somebody else in the house. So I asked her what happened this time, and she said that my brother was attacked again. Now, when I say attacked, I mean he was physically scratched and burned. The first attack, I actually have a video of me looking at the scratches and burns, because when I took a picture, you couldn't see it. Like, no matter how you took the picture, flash or not, no matter what angle, it would not show up on photos at all. So at this point, I love taking pictures and stuff, and I was like, alright, we're going to take a video because it's the only way it's going to show up. I uploaded that video to YouTube several years ago, when I was actually still living in this house, because I was looking for answers. We didn't know what really we were dealing with. We had an idea, but we didn't want to assume. Like, we thought, you know, this must be the very worst that can happen. So we just assumed that it wasn't a demon. We thought maybe at worst it was a poltergeist, and we were wrong. So I may re-upload that video. It's on an old account I had. I was gonna delete that old account, but I may re-upload it. I might even upload it with like a voiceover explaining what's going on, because in the video we're kind of laughing, like we're trying to poke fun at what was going on, just because when you're so scared but you don't want to show it, you just kind of laugh. You try to laugh it off. Just like, yeah, haha, no big deal. But the thing that bothered me the most was he could not reach on his back and his shoulders and his arms where he was attacked. People try to say that he did it for attention and that he had done it to himself, but he had no way of burning himself or scratching himself. It was almost as if the scratches were just underneath the surface of the skin, because only a couple of them ever bled out of all the attacks, and they were like under the skin, almost like they were bruised, but it was they would fade within several hours of him waking up and us seeing them. Like within just 2 or 3 hours they'd be completely gone, as if it had never happened. So the attacks that happened to him happened 3 or 4 times, I believe, and he wasn't the only one that got attacked either. Before the larger attacks happened, I had been attacked a few times, but I didn't want to talk about it. I thought that I had maybe done it to myself, or maybe it was the way I was sleeping, or something like that. I didn't want to draw attention to it. So, the strangest thing about it was that these attacks were always accompanied by really strange, really fucked up dreams. And almost every single one of them, between myself, my brother, and my mom, that we had discussed, even though it wasn't always an attack, but it was just this reoccurring dream that continually happened, that we'd randomly have throughout the time that we lived here. And for us that were attacked, especially my younger brother, it seemed to happen every time that he was attacked. So it got to the point that when he would have this dream, he would wake up expecting that he had been attacked that night. So when he'd be attacked, it would be burns and scratches and like almost bruise-like lines on him, and sometimes he would wake up dragged out of his bed, or dragged halfway out of his bed. These dreams always had this same building, and more often than not, people were either being killed around it, in it, were being shoved off the top of it, stuff like that. My little brother explained his dream the first time that it happened in the video that I have. He explained it as everything was happy, everything was great, you know, there was people, there was animals, happy, 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 blue skies, everything. Next thing he knows, there was a flash, and the skies turned red, everything was bloody, everything was dead, everything was murdered, it was gory, And the thing that bothers me the most about this was, it wasn't just that one time, it wasn't just a single nightmare, and there was always somehow this same building in those dreams. And I guess the only way to explain it was almost like a barn, like a silo type thing maybe? I don't know how to explain it really. But I do plan to talk to my mom. She actually wrote up a list for me of paranormal experiences that she had at the house, because I asked her and my brothers to, you know, either expect an interview type of thing from me, or for them to write up their experiences. And my mom was the only one who did it, of course. So I'm going to talk to her, and I'm going to see if there's any way that she can help me explain this barn, and that will be included in a later video. Like I said before, my email address will be included in the description for anybody who would like to contact me about paranormal experiences or anything similar. Even if it's just a chit chat, if there's something going on that you can't explain and you think that maybe I can help you, then by all means, please feel free to email me. I was also requested to do a dark spirits tag, and I believe I will upload a video of that separately, which some of that information from the questions that I've seen were in this tag would probably overlap with some of the things I'm talking about in these videos, but I would rather do it separately just because it is a tag. There are some questions in that tag that also I can answer with stories that I can't really incorporate into these videos just because there's so much that's happened, and by reading those questions sometimes I remember certain things. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll be sure to upload another one within the next few days, just like I did with this one from the first one. I'm hoping to upload at least 1 to 2 videos a week depending on my schedule. So if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you're wondering if I had experienced, or if you have any, you know, questions, comments, concerns, what have you, feel free. I really don't mind questions at all, and like I said, when I've tried to explain these experiences to other people before, they had a tendency to call me crazy, or say that it didn't happen, or say that it doesn't exist, so I'm kind of used to that, so I'm expecting hate from these videos, but oh well. So, alright guys, I will talk to you in the next video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Alright, bye.